Hey you guys, welcome to another developer interview here with Parole. With me this week, Jorge Dinares, programmer at Tessera Studios, celebrating the release of Intruders Hide and Seek on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation VR. Jorge, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me here, Ryan. Thank you. Nice to see you.
This is really exciting, dude. This is Tessera's first game, correct?
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
As a team, this is your first game, but what about you? Previous to all of this, have you been in the industry before Tessera?
On a personal level, no, not at all. I mean, this game sort of stems from our master's final project. So I was still a student at the time. I did a few demos here and there, but nothing serious, nothing to be taken seriously at all.
Wow. This is pretty cool then, man. So coming right out of school with kind of killing it right out of the gate.
Yeah.
With,
well, we'll see.
So was the entire team at Tessera? Were you guys all in the same master's program? Is that how that works?
Yeah, it was the same master's program, but we come from three different subjects, I guess. There's programmers, there's designers, and there's artists there as well. So they just mixed us all in one huge group of 11 people in our case to make this big sort of bigger project, which we would then present to different sort of contests and things like that.
And you won some of those contests, right?
Yeah, I mean, we just expected to get a grade from the demo, and that would be pretty much about it for the game. But we won Best Game University Game Award for PlayStation Talents, which is what I think enabled us and gave us that confidence that boost to develop the game for 3 years or two. It's been 2 years, yeah, really.
So the team wasn't like a group of friends that decided to do something together. You guys were just sort of thrown together by the school.
Yeah, exactly. That was pretty daunting at the start. We didn't know each other, and we didn't have a clue of how we were gonna work together. But yeah, we started. Also our first pitches, they just were so eclectic. Everyone had this different vision and this different idea of what sort of games they liked. So it was weird at the start, but we got together really, really well, and we're so happy with the team we are right now.
I'm sure you guys developed some pretty close friendships over the last 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're like a crazy family by now. We love each other. We do discuss a lot of things, but it never gets too personal.
So you said that the ideas for Intruders kind of came from everybody's background. Everyone had a different idea for it. So since I've got you in the hot seat, what were your ideas for it, man? Like what were your and also what kind of games were you brought up on? What made you want to develop games?
Wow, yeah, it's actually pretty funny that you asked that, because the first idea was I pitched something which had really nothing to do with Intruders, what it is right now, but it was the first pitch, and it had something to do with a kid just being attacked by these 3 terrorists, probably it was going to be, and he just had to resort to all these different objects in the house and try to craft different weapons to kick them out. In a way, it was gonna be a little bit more like a Home Alone, more arcadey. But we saw that right away that wouldn't really work. And if we talk about like game influences and what we liked, we all liked all sorts of games, really. Just anything that got a pretty decent review on Metacritic or on IGN, we would be interested in right away. But we wanted it to be a very narrative experience and wanted to sort of take out as many distractions as possible, probably. Just keeping it simple, because we also knew we had quite a few challenges developing the game. We would have to work with what we had, so it was more about focusing on the narrative aspect of things, probably.
Yeah, well, that certainly comes across in the final product. It seems like you're very often like almost instructed to be like, oh, hey, here, one of the intruders is coming, get in a closet and hide. And then you kind of like watch the story play out for the next minute or so. And then it's time to move on to the next objective.
Yeah.
But now you got me thinking, man, like crafting weapons and take like Home Alone 4. I was like, Intruders 2, Ben Strikes Back.
Yeah.
I feel like it's already in development in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think he should grow up a little bit just in order to feel like you can do something against these foes, because it's a bit too much. He's just 12 years old, and we can have him, killing, murdering cold-bloodedly just random people. So I guess Intruders 2 might be a good idea. Yeah.
I can't lie, man. But by the end of the game, I was secretly hoping I would find, your dad's like hidden pistol or hidden shotgun or something, and just be like, well, the rest of the game is pretty self-explanatory. I know how we're gonna take down these 3 intruders.
Yeah, I completely understand that, and I understand. I come from a Call of Duty background, so I'm really big on shooting stuff and really, just having a little bit more mechanics to play with. But we knew we had our limitations as a small team, and we really try to make a game that was gonna feel complete in a way. And we had all these crazy different ideas. It was gonna be a bit like Home Alone. I remember you had this photograph you could flash enemies with, you could throw marbles at them, they would trip, but we thought that would also be a bit too gimmicky in a way, or too comical, would sort of release a bit of the tension we were trying to give.
Yeah, you're venturing into Night Trap territory at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you just again? I want to probe you a little bit here as far as your background.
Absolutely.
This is a game with some serious subject matter, and and it feels like you're in a serious situation when you're in it, and it kind of hit me in a way that other PlayStation VR games haven't. Like I love scary games, but like so many of the ones I've played, really lean into the paranormal. But this is like serious, realistic subject matter, and it comes across in like pretty much every way. The environments are realistic. The enemies are they don't hold back when they're talking. They swear, and like it sounds like they're brutalizing the family during certain scenes. Like, do you have like a horror movie background? Like, do you like horror movies? Like, I'm thinking things like Hostel come to mind. Like that just like would kind of invoke this kind of game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had a lot of influences, and it was much more in the direction of movies than games at the time, because we didn't know a lot of games that were similar to this one, but we knew a lot of movies. And probably our first inspiration, like that just came to mind, was Michael Haneke's Funny Games. Have you seen that one?
Absolutely. And you know what? You nailed it, man. Like that is the same feeling I got from that movie as I got from this game, for sure.
Thank you. We love about that. We love the tension, but we also love that from minute one it just really shows that it's not gonna care. It's not gonna care about what happens to the protagonist. It might not be a happy ending, and you can't expect things to go north all the time. Yeah, so that was it. A little bit of Panic Room in there too, because just the domotic, the technological aspect of things, just the safe room, looking at things through cameras, and so Panic Room was a bit of an inspiration for us as well. And of course, Hostel is great too, but we did want to strafe a little bit from the blood and gore, so that's not there as much.
Yeah, I noticed that you kept that kind of like off camera. It was more insinuated than delivered.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Do you play, or does the team play other PlayStation VR games? And the reason I ask is because so often I'll talk to a developer and I'll say like something about Skyrim, and they'll be like, "Oh, we haven't actually played Skyrim in VR." And I'm like, for me that always seems a little bit strange. When a developer isn't checking out like the other games that are in the same realm. So do you guys play PSVR games?
Yeah, all the time, and there's 11 of us. So most of our ideas we get from designers, and we know our designers are playing everything all the time. They're just bringing inspiration, trying to see what works and what doesn't. For example, Skyrim we really loved. But we got to play most VR games out there. Robot Recall probably would be our favorite. That's the one we played the most in the office. Yeah, that one's insane. But there's so many of them, and horror games are coming up. There's a lot of them coming out right now, so that's very interesting. Resident Evil, of course. That's wow.
Yeah, probably Resident Evil 7 has to be my favorite, maybe my favorite game of all time once you put it in VR mode.
Wow, absolutely. You completed it in VR? Sorry.
In VR, like on the flat screen, it doesn't. I've always liked Resident Evil games, but Resident Evil doesn't do it for me on the flat screen anymore. Like it's cool, but man, it really that immersion level that it adds. Like you're always looking over your shoulder in that game, and to an extent in Intruders as well. You know, like you're creeping around the house and you're just like, what was that noise? What's going on? You know, like where are they right now? Looking for the flashlights. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you. Well, I mean, if we look like or we feel like Resident Evil, even if it's in a small percentage, that makes us so happy.
So one of the ways actually that your game is like Resident Evil is that it has no move support, and I know that VR gamers, they love their options, and you guys have options all over the place when it comes to to movement and blinders and comfort settings. But I was a little surprised to see a game like this where you feel like you're really immersed in the world, but you kind of remove a little bit of that by not offering move support. Was that ever in the works?
Well, yeah, but we did have a lot of ideas of how movement was going to go and what sort of peripherals we were going to use. But I guess in the end, from a design standpoint, we barely use our hands in the game. We don't craft, we don't use weapons, we just it's more about moving around, knowing the house, using stealth to your advantage. Of course, it would have been great, but we knew it was a big challenge just incorporating that extra feature if we were not gonna be exploiting it to the degree it should be.
Sure, absolutely.
So it's I don't know if at least you were able to hold a handgun at some point, it would have been a great excuse, but
or marbles
are great. Yeah, just like flicking your hand, giving it the effect. But no, we didn't do any of that. So
nice. Now I've got to ask, only because every developer has a different story when it comes to PlayStation VR support. Was the idea to have PlayStation VR support in Intruders from the get-go, or was that something that Sony came to you later and it's like, hey, what if you had PlayStation VR support?
That was actually the fault, no, not the fault, but of our teacher, one of our teachers, when we pitched the idea, the earliest pitch, he was like, hey man, you got to do this for sure on VR. It's not going to work otherwise. This thing is meant for VR. And we were like, what? But we haven't developed a game ever, He was like, exactly, you haven't done any of this, you don't know, it's all uncharted territory for you, so you might as well, right? So we thought VR was gonna create that level of immersion we wanted. Just like I think it works great with horror games, even if you don't have that interaction with the hand, the hand peripherals, but it's still great to feel like you're in the house, in the game. And it just also, like, being from a 12-year-old kid perspective, it's much better when just creating this feeling of being overwhelmed and being completely in shock by the magnitude of things by comparison to you, because we played a little bit with those proportions as well, trying to make it feel like you were a little kid. I think that's part of what made us decide to use VR.
Yeah, usually when I'm 4 feet tall in a VR game, I go looking for the height slider.
Yeah,
but in this game, that's just how tall you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. You can't. Well, you can get up your seat, of course, but it's gonna be weird. You're gonna fall straight back down.
You can sit on some phone books.
Yeah, exactly.
Or booster seat.
You can hack it. Yeah.
So as a programmer, how difficult was it adding, or how difficult was doing VR for the first time? He's like you said, everything was kind of the first time, but did you find it difficult?
Yeah, it was pretty daunting, particularly at the start. We have this crazy story about, we were working on parallel with other teams that were making their own different project. Of course, not VR, but like we were when they were almost done with the prototype, we were just trying to get something to show on the VR goggles at the time. And I remember one of our producers and also programmer was there until pretty much 9 p.m. or like 10 p.m. just working on it, and in the installation in the uni area, and he was like, I got it, and someone said, what was it? What did you fix? A crazy bug, like some engine thing? And he was, no man, I just got the screen, the goggles to show something, man. That's what I got. And it was like 3 months in or 4 months in. But yeah, we had that challenge, just making all the hardware work, because we were playing with very old we didn't have the Oculus at that time. It was 3 years ago, so we were using different. But we also found a huge challenge because VR was slightly new at the time, and we didn't really know a lot about the standards regarding motion sickness and all this immersive experience. We didn't know what worked and what didn't. So we tried with a lot of things. We tried some form of movement, which almost seemed like driving a car. Point and click movement, none of it seemed to work until we sort of moved into this more conservative, but also with some new twitches, I guess, a different approach to movement. Yeah. And it was great for us to see when Resident Evil came out, when we saw it in the festivals, that it was similar to ours, the way they had handled movement in that game. Well, we were like, well, they might think we were copying from them because we're so much smaller than them as a game, but yeah, we were glad to see that we were sort of following on the same footsteps.
Do you have any data on the percentage of Intruders gamers that are playing in VR versus playing on the flat screen?
Yeah, we don't know. We don't have any sales figures right now or anything like that. We don't have any data, but we imagine, like, from the reviews we've just seen that people just like to play the game in VR, and they think it's so much better. It adds so much to the experience, and I think anyone who has VR is gonna play it on VR for sure.
Yeah. So now it's time to get into the nitty gritty, man, because the game cats will absolutely kill me if I don't ask you some of the hard-hitting questions.
Shoot away.
So one of the first things that happens in the game, you're sitting in the car with your family, and your little sister's sitting to the right of you, and you're like, and it's almost deceiving. The game almost gives you I don't want to say a bad first impression, but I think it's an inaccurate first impression, because your little sister is like this cartoon character almost, and the rest of the game feels like serious and dark and scary. And then the mother turns around from the front seat and looks at you, and it's like the most shocking thing of all time, because she looks like a nip tuck reject or something, like something horrible happened in a plastic surgery, like something. And what happened? Like so much of this game looks great, and then some of the character models just look really wrong or something. I know that it wasn't intentional. I'm sure.
Well, honestly, I can't really speak much for the art team, because I'm nothing but proud of the work they've put into this game. But I do understand the concerns with that. But I guess character models are one of the most costly tasks, I think, in game development. And we had this producer at the start, which was actually our teacher, our master's degree teacher. He told us, just polishing the character, making him look really good, from making him look good to making him look really good, or from making him look okay to making him look really good, there's such a huge time frame in between, so such a huge extent of time. So we had to make, I guess, sacrifices in a way. We had to focus on delivering this full experience, which completing the house, giving it the house the personality more so even than the characters, I guess, and just enabling the player to finish the game, I guess, just finishing the game. But I do understand. We're also pretty inexperienced, and I can tell you right now that if we were to make this game again exactly the way it has been done, we would probably take half the time we took at the very most, because we were noobs, really. We didn't know what we were doing, but right now I think we do, and I think the artists have gone a long way with character art as well. So I think I'm happy with what they did regardless. So.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like like too heavy-handed criticism, because the house is I think the house is the most important character in the game, and if that's where the time was spent, and that's where that's the house is amazing.
Oh,
I during my first impression live stream of this game, like I never comment on like when something, I don't know, is like big and grandiose. Like it's like, oh, look how amazing this house looks. Like look how expensive like it must be. And that kind of stuff doesn't really impress me. But nonstop for the first hour of this game, I kept looking around this house and going, man, like I don't want a big house in my life, but I want to live here. Like you guys created a place that like looks fantastic. It's like, go out on the terrace. I'm like, there's a terrace? This is like cool.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks. Well, we try to make. I think the artists. That's all the artists. They put a lot of their own heart into the house, and there's so many little inside jokes, I guess, about the team placed in the house in different places. You can see different figurines, which are actually character models from our other games that have been done by members of the team. So that's pretty fun. Like they've sort of decorated that house as if it were theirs, pretty much.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that shows in a way, and I'm super proud of the art team for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I especially like that the game starts you off in the daytime, and so you can actually kind of like get the lay of the land and like learn how the house is laid out a little bit. And then when it goes dark, it's just like the mood really hits you right then. And I love how like the rain looks on the windows, and then like when the lightning flashes, like the whole house lights up for just a second. So like, yeah, absolutely, the house is my favorite character in the game.
Thank you.
That's a thing.
We're really happy you liked it. I mean, I think you spend much more time just looking around the house, or it's meant to be that, rather than looking at at least looking at your sister. I think she's in there. You have to cope with her for the first portion of the game, but after that it's much more about sort of figuring out the story by yourself through just wondering about. And so yeah, I think that's what we tried to focus on.
Yeah. And if the other big thing that kind of stood out, like in a game that for the most part like looks and plays so well, the voice acting, or maybe the writing, it definitely stood out. It seemed a little awkward at points, and obviously again we understand you guys are a small team and this is your first big project, but are there different language tracks? I'm trying to figure out. It's like if you guys are a Spanish team,
yeah,
and I'm wondering if some of the things that sound weird in English were just kind of lost in translation, or like that the voice actors didn't know what the intention was. I don't know. Are there different language tracks in the game?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. It was definitely first made for Spanish, just because we had more accessibility to the different voice actors, and our script writer was Spanish, originally, but we did hire a translating, some translators for the script, which did a decent job. But I think we have learned a lot that we should guide the voice actors were very good, but we should try to guide them a little bit more on what the intentions were. We pretty much gave pretty basic notes on what the characters were like. This is Dennis. He's a maniac. He's crazy. He can snap off, at any point, but we should have delved a little bit deeper into the psyche of the characters to be able to give them a clear idea of how they were going to act. Because I think if we had nailed that, we could have gotten away with a little bit more of the dialogue in there. I think the dialogue wasn't that bad, but perhaps we could have worked on that a little bit more. Yeah, nice. Definitely. And also, I think Spanish is our first language, of course. So we did it with that feel and with that idea for the game. Yeah.
Well, if you ever need a voice actor for future projects, let me know.
Wow, yeah, absolutely. You have a great voice, by the way. It sounds just the same as in the videos. You're not using any effect or anything. I can see. That's great. It's super deep. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole story about how I do the voice in Honor and Duty D-Day, and it's hilarious when people realize it's me. They think I'm playing the game with them.
That's great. That's insane.
So what's next for Intruders, man? Or are you guys kind of like done and you said, okay, we've completed the game, it's done to our liking, and now we're putting it up on the shelf, or are we going to see more from Tessera for Intruders? Is it going to be patched or updated? You guys have other game modes in mind? What are you thinking?
Well, I've just been working on a patch. The programming team has just been working on a patch, which was some minor bugs and some features as well, but nothing too major, I guess. Nothing you'll really notice. But we don't know. It depends. It really depends on what the people say. I mean, we're happy to make a DLC for the game. We're also excited about the possibility of a second one, completely, just throwing to the ground. Not throwing to the ground, but working our way up from what we've done so far and trying to make a much more ambitious project. We wanna step it up a little bit. So probably we would be looking more at Intruders 2 rather than keep bringing new content for this one. Yeah. We've also have another set of ideas in store, so we're not sure what's next for us right now.
Okay. So earlier, before we started this interview, you had a retail physical copy of Intruders Hide and Seek, and that's not currently available here in the States. I know people online are talking about how it's only available in like Denmark or something, like on Amazon. Is that going to have a worldwide release?
The physical copy, you mean?
Yeah. Do you know?
We don't think it is. I think it's something related to our contract with our publisher, and they don't really publish games. I guess it's very it's pretty much impossible for them to publish physical games to the US. But I guess if you could ask, you could probably manage to find a way to pay it through Amazon or eBay and get it shipped, but it's not done per se. No, absolutely not. But it's such a pity. I think it's such a pity.
Absolutely, I love having PlayStation VR games. There's not a lot of physical ones out there. So anytime one does get published, I like to have it in my collection. So to all you game cats out there that are physical collectors or that only buy physical copies, it's time for all of us to go find it on Amazon or find it in other countries and import it. We're all importing the crap out of this game. That's what we're doing this week.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying anything definitive here. I'm not too sure on the details. So you might see it at some point, but I know it's not up there yet. So I'm sorry, but all the best. The best luck to you guys. I hope you can get the physical copy.
We're gonna try our damnedest, that's for sure. And you'll see it every single week on the Gamescast behind me on my bookshelf. I promise you.
Oh, thank you.
So, dude, I'm so happy that you were able to spend some time with us today and talk a little bit about the development and give us some insight about some of the things that were cut from the game. And I really hope that Tessera, you guys are off to a great start for your first game. Like I said, you kind of blew it out of the water on your first try.
Thank you very much.
So this is a game that I think anybody who really likes horror movies should definitely check out. So Yeah, and at this point, everybody knows that I'm like the biggest horror movie fan ever. So
yeah.
if you guys are like me, then you know you should be checking this game out.
Great, yeah. Thank you you so much.
Yeah, make sure you stay in touch and let us know what's next. Keep us updated. You know, if any big updates do come to Intruders, please let us know. And
we're still looking at and working with the feedback we're getting from you guys, which is absolutely great. Just saw your review a few minutes ago, and it was great. And we will try to keep this sort of relationship with users, because they're the ones that know what's best for the next game, for sure. So yeah, we'll stay in contact for sure.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much for your time. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
All right, you guys, that does it for another developer interview here without Parole. Thanks to Jorge Dinares and, of course, the entire team over at Tessera Studios for bringing Intruders Hide and Seek to PlayStation VR. It was awesome to learn a little of the behind-the-scenes stuff today about where Intruders came from and some of the ideas that were sort of, left on the cutting room floor. Anyway, next week we're going to be talking to the developers of Starblood Arena, White Moon Dreams, and hear their story, hear what happened about the development, the life, and death of their game. It's a story that I think everybody needs to hear. So we'll be back here next week, next Saturday, for another developer interview. As always, I'm Brian Paul, and I love you all.